Hello and welcome to the Sixth Pillar Podcast, hosted by retired Chief Neil Gang, CEO of Fourth Watch Consulting. I'm Shalyn Finstad with Techna Innovations, and today we're proud to be sponsored by Virtual Academy Training and On-Site Plus, delivering post-approved training and first responder wellness education. In this final episode of our Ignite 2025 Voices series, we're wrapping up an incredible journey of stories and inspiration from our featured speakers for the Virtual Academy Ignite 2025 Wellness Summit, happening November 12th and 13th at the Nashville Franklin Drury Plaza Hotel in Tennessee. Today, we're honored to welcome Elizabeth Pol, a 21-year Chicago police veteran, forensic psychology expert, and founder of Resilient Heroes. Through her work in trauma and suicide education, Elizabeth is helping first responders and military personnel find healing, resilience, and renewed purpose, bringing vital insight to the Ignite 2025 Summit. Chief Gang, the mic is yours.
Welcome back to the Sixth Pillar Podcast. I'm excited to announce our partnership with Virtual Academy On-Site Plus, who is actually sponsoring this podcast now and will be sponsoring this amazing event called Ignite 2025, November 12th and 13th in Nashville, Tennessee. We are continuing with our speaker series, and we're excited to announce our last speaker in our podcast series, but not our last person because she's so talented, has so much to talk about. We actually have to narrow her down a little bit to talk about, number 3 in the Ashland model, peer support, but she could talk about all 7 of these topics if we gave the opportunity. But talk about somebody with lived experience. Liz Pol has lived experience. This lady works in it, if you know what I mean. She works at the Chicago Police Department. So talk about somebody who needs to be resilient, someone who needs peer support. Liz, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. Tell a little bit, our audience, who you are, and just talk a little bit about peer support and why that's important to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you guys. So I am Liz Pol. I am actually a Chicago police officer with almost 22 years on the job now. I am also a mental health professional. So my focus is trauma and suicide. And I started a nonprofit, which really focuses on trauma and suicide psychoeducation. And we do a variety of different trainings and other work. I also am currently involved in suicide psychological autopsies, where I actually am certified to conduct those autopsies of first responders and military that we have lost, unfortunately, to suicide. And it's really just going back from the time of death as far back as we need to really understand why the individuals, manifested into suicide and how this ultimately happened, all the risk factors involved, protective factors are diminished, and so on. And so really, it's a lot of all that work that I'm involved in. And peer support is one of the most important pieces for any agency. I know that we're doing better seeing a lot of agencies out there really developing their own peer support teams, but they really are effective if they're, created properly and you really train individuals. Because here's the thing, as first responders ourselves, as a police officer, we tend to want to keep all of what we go through away from our family, friends, and the people that are the closest to us because we don't want to either A, expose them to the chaos of what the real world is like, and B, we feel that no one really truly understands us because it is a unique job, right, in and of itself. And a lot of what we experience is tough sometimes to really swallow. So to be able to turn to someone who understands the job, has probably gone through those experiences is really helpful. And we're more likely to want to actually open up and really kind of process a lot of the stuff that we experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. What we always gloss over, particularly when I talk about you, is the amount and the extensive education that you have and you poured into yourself to learn these things, right? So talk a little bit about that. I don't think people understand, like, while you're going to work, you're getting your master's degree, you're doing a bunch of different things. So let's talk a little bit about you personally before we even get into the topic, because I think people need to hear that you can also become more, go get your education, go get your master's degree while you're being a police officer. But I know that was very challenging for you. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was a bit of insanity, but I guess we all tend to be a little cray to be on this show, right? So yeah, I went back to grad school. I was working the streets and I worked the 5 o'clock p.m. car to 2 a.m. And at some point, so for me, my master's is in forensic psychology. At some point, I needed to complete 700 hours of clinical work as an internship. Not paid, nothing like that. Just you have to put in the practice, right? Because you're really focusing on a specific area. So that was fun and challenging. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go do my internship hours. I would then go to class at about noon in downtown, go to class from like noon to 3 and change into my uniform while I'm driving to roll call for my 5 o'clock p.m. roll call till 2 a.m. I hardly ever slept. I was probably completely out of my mind. It's all a fog now, but I think that was still easier than raising children.
Yeah. Well, I think that's important that people know that. This is the reason why, because Ignite 2025 isn't about pouring out, resources that are in this for a money grab. It's about lived experience, about people that have done the job or they're culturally competent to be able to speak on these topics. And that's a different focus sometimes than some other conferences. Now with you, we get a dual purpose, right? You get the lived experience and culturally competent. You can't be more culturally competent than actually coming from the profession. So I think that's a unique experience that you're going to be bringing forward. It's a unique experience that our listeners would be able to hear. So I'm super excited about that. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about you and your experience, but you have a partner also, don't you? That oftentimes travels with you. Why don't you talk a little bit about who that is and introduce that person to the group?
I'll see if he'll come over here. But so I have a trauma therapy dog that travels with me everywhere I go as long as I drive. Unfortunately, he cannot fly. He is a 200-pound bull mastiff, and he didn't fall into his, spot by accident. There were actually two individuals that I worked with in CPD who had done 4 tours of Iraq separately themselves in Afghanistan. And when they came back at the end of their tours, they were in really bad shape. It was so bad that one individual I was convinced was going to eat his gun, realistically. And it's very difficult when it's a friend of yours because I'm not dealing with somebody, in the clinical world or somebody separate. So really it was just trying to keep eyes on these individuals, trying to keep them close and talk to them. But it really wasn't until they engaged with my dog, who at the time was just a pet. Because of his size, I think he's so big, his just unique breed. He is everywhere we go. I mean, everyone stops to see him because he's just so massive and he's got that, commonality shit between first responders and the dog. It's that shared commonality that on the exterior, he looks like a beast, but in the interior, he's a good, loving, sweet animal, right? And we know that there are many studies out there that show how animals really are used as therapy dogs because we know that they give us that feel good hormone, right? We crave that oxytocin as human beings. And so when we interact with them, they do raise that for us and they make us feel better. And so with those two individuals, when they interacted with the dog, something started to happen where they started to shift. And I think they started to feel and realize themselves that things were not okay for them and that they actually may have need to go seek help or resources or something. And it was actually the very beginning for both individuals to go seek the resources they needed, get the help. And I can tell you that they're with us today and they're living their best life. So it was very clear with the first individual, but by the second individual, it was, yeah, we can't ignore this. So I had to get him certified. And yeah, he goes with me to a lot of events, a lot of trainings, conferences. We go see veterans because a lot of individuals are hanging on by a thread. And it really just does help bring a sense of calm. He helps people with, anxiety, depression, grief, emotional dysregulation issues, you name it. So he does bring a sense of calm. I don't know. Arlo, come here. He's not moving right now. He's like, gotta work. Come here.
He learned that from your husband, huh? Not to listen. Okay, so while we're trying to get Arlo into the shot, I think it's important that people understand the benefit that these pets have. And in Pinole, we recognized the need, and we actually went out and got a therapy dog. His name was Milo, and Milo was actually part of our peer support team. So just understand it. Peer supports may not just be about certifying your people in peer support. You can get more dynamic. You could add therapy dogs if you wanted to do that. Very impactful. And I know Liz was talking about Arlo, 200 pounds. Well, that's a lot easier to walk around than equine therapy, like a 2,500 pound horse, that talk about trying to get a horse somewhere. But so we're excited that we'll hear a little bit about Arlo. I don't think he's going to be able to travel, but I think at least he'll be there in spirit. And I know Liz will talk about the benefits of what a therapy dog can do. Now, you're old school people that will walk around and go, oh, we're investing in pet therapy. Yeah, until they start petting the dog and until they start realizing the impacts, and then they become believers. And you talked a little bit about studies. Well, there's a clinician that's out there, somebody I really believe in. It's a colleague of mine, Dr. Jamie Brower. She talks a lot about peer support, and she's shared many times that there are red flags when it comes to to people dying by suicide. And she actually talks a little about that the human interaction and people reaching out to people with lived experience in peer support is probably the number one thing in all the 7 points of the ASHA model. If you could only do one, it would be peer support, right? Building that innovative, impactful, and proactive peer support team is so important. In fact, she talks a little bit about this study that was done, that there is a small window of opportunity to interrupt someone's mind, right? Where they talk about suicide, and it's like 1 to 3 hours, right? But where you have an opportunity to really interact, and a peer or a family member can interact and maybe change an outcome. So I think it's really important. The other thing that she speaks about in peer support is that we talk about everything. We're human beings. We talk about all our life's decisions, right? We talk about when we maybe want to change jobs. We talk about when we want to move. We talk about, when we're buying a house. Oftentimes when people make a decision to change their life or to end their life, they also speak about those too, but just not trained to actually hear those. That's where peer support is so important. And I know Liz is going to talk a little bit about that, because Chicago was a hotbed for a while, right? I believe when we first met, we were talking about somebody who left briefing, went into the garage where the vehicles were parked, and took their own life right after briefing. And I know it's happened several times, I believe, in the Chicago area. So I'm so excited about it and have Liv to come out and talk about those things. But again, it's about people want to reach out to somebody with lived experience, whether they're going through a training or whether they're in crisis. That's why peer support is critical if you do it right. So Liz, if you had an opportunity, I know you're going to come out and talk about peer support. We'll talk a little bit about therapy dogs. We'll talk about Arlo. But if you were to talk to the leaders and future leaders of this profession and gave them a tip when it comes to peer support, what would you tell them today?
I would definitely tell them it's necessary to have some kind of peer support system in place. There are ways that you can definitely have that system put together if you're not necessarily sure. We definitely even have on a national level. I do know that the national FOP, Sherry Martin, does an incredible job with the Power of Peers and developing that program and getting people trained. So it doesn't have to lay in your hands and feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to begin, or how do we get the resources? The resources are out there. Most importantly, you want to do whatever you can to be proactive. And that's the whole idea and the mission behind the work I do, is we need to be proactive and put things in place, such as peer support, so that when you do have individuals that are trying to turn somewhere and they don't know who to turn to, not everybody wants to immediately turn to maybe psychotherapy or other psychological therapeutic modalities, right? And so this would be at least a very first minimal step for them to be able to turn to and be able to get some help. You don't want to wait for people to fall into crisis, because it's just that much harder to come out of. And when you're in crisis mode, you're definitely more likely to fall into and spiral in a direction of something way worse, such as suicide. So again, it's about being proactive and not reactive. Because at this point in time, and I'll tell you, because most of my work is really focused on suicide, every agency across the country, and I travel across the country doing this work, everybody's very reactive at this point. With suicide and crisis, it's not until people are in it that, we start to want to try to figure out what to do, and then it's too late. With suicide, we know that it's an issue. The stats are super high. And all of us agree that it's a terrible thing and something needs to be done about it. But 5 to 7 days after someone has been laid to rest, we're back to business as usual. And we just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we have to make changes, and especially early on, be very proactive. So putting these elements in place really does have positive outcomes. It reduces the negative.
I think you did a great job of summarizing what we're seeing. And you're right. I think our profession is always reactive, right? And I think there's some value in what you're saying. Like, we have to be proactive. In fact, Dr. Phil Bequia, who we had on the podcast, he'll be at Ignite, actually changed the word and called it presiliency instead of resiliency. That left of bang where we build out resiliency before the event happens. And that's where we need to get to, I think, if we want to be successful. And here's the thing, when I go around and speak, I do this exercise where I ask people to turn their light on if they answer 3 questions. And usually it's, do you know somebody who died by suicide? Ton of lights go on. And then it's usually a question, did you ever have somebody in your organization now or any organization you ever worked in die by suicide? Lights are all over the place. And then this is the last question that pisses people off. And I love it because usually I get on a plane and they can't get me. But what I ask them, if you're a supervisor and you're sitting in front of us today, and without even much thought, somebody pops in your mind that may be struggling, alcohol addiction, maybe opioid addiction, maybe they're going through a divorce, struggling with relationships, porn addiction, right? All those things that law enforcement people face. I said, if their name pops into your head, what are you doing about it? And the room sits quietly. What am I doing about it? I'm a leader. I'm sitting here listening to this wellness class. I'm learning about leadership, but I'm not doing anything. Yet I know somebody's struggling. So here's my challenge. I always tell them, I'm going to challenge my audience today. If you know somebody is struggling, all you have to do is send them a text. Let them know I'm thinking about you. Let them know that the voice is heard. Let them know I see you. I hear you. Whatever words you use, don't use my words. Use your words. Send a text because that short text could disrupt that cycle. It could be just that 1 to 3 hour window we're talking about where we could change outcomes. And I know that when we get to Ignite 2025 in a couple of weeks, that after you hear Liz, she's going to give you ways to change outcomes, not just in your professional life, but your personal life. Because here it is. This is the sad stat. They say 1 to 4 people in our profession, law enforcement profession, actually has suicidal ideations. And here's my message to you. If that's you, it's okay. Let's normalize that. What's not okay is to sit on that and take action and not do something about it to get help. And I know that after you hear Liz speak, you're going to have tools able to get help professionally and personally. So Liz, as we end up, I would like you, if you could, tell people where they could find you in case they want to reach out to you before the event, and just give people a little opportunity to know where they could reach out and get more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So my nonprofit is Resilient Heroes. You can find me on LinkedIn under Elizabeth Pol. I'm available on the website. It's www.resilient-heroes.com. All of my information is on there. Facebook as well, Liz Pol. Yeah. So anyway, email, text, phone call, I'm always available for any questions. I know that everybody's involved in the LinkedIn world, so you'll see me on there as well.
Yeah, but I have to mention, not LinkedIn, all-star, right? Not an AI all-star. Somebody with lived experience from both sides of the coin. We have an opportunity to bring her in and listen to her and get tangible tools to take away to make you more healthy at home and make you more healthy at work, and for you to deliver messages and tools to your people as well. So again, Ignite 2025, this is not your regular conference. Elevated experience. Again, this is not just a wellness conference. It's a call to action. And we can't thank our partnership with Virtual Academy Onsite Plus to be able to bring you these type of events. And here's the thing. They are diving into this because they know that we could change outcomes by doing that. We've created a very niche boutique summit where these speakers will be available for you to engage in fellowship with. And that's a really key opportunity to come in and learn things from these people. Seats are limited by design, so sign up as soon as you can. It's November 12th and 13th. Out in Nashville. We look forward to seeing you. And I'll leave you with this. You can be the spark that fuels that enduring flame that's needed to change outcomes. And again, if you're serving this profession with a servant heart, you're doing the right things for the right reasons, you'll always be needed, wanted, and appreciated. God bless you. We look forward to seeing you soon at Ignite 2025.
Thank you.
We extend our gratitude to retired Chief Neil Gang for leading today's exploration of wellness and leadership for our extraordinary first responders. A special thank you as well to our new sponsor, Virtual Academy and Onsite Plus, delivering post-approved training and first responder wellness education. This is Shalyn Finstad signing off on behalf of Techna Innovations and the 6 Pillar Podcast. Be safe and hope to see you at the summit.